Okay, I have Steve Mera. How you doing, sir?
Very good, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate your time. Let's go ahead and tell everyone who you are and what it is you do.
Well, what don't I do these days, to be honest with you? Started off in the 39 years ago in the research of aerial phenomena. After spending 15 years, exhausted the subject, moved into the paranormal. And then I did psychology behavioral degree, moved into parapsychology for about 5 years, did 17 years of corporate confidential investigations for businesses regarding paranormal disturbances, working with the UK's Ministry of Defence and police authorities. Did some research into cryptids and also ancient anomalies. So wrote about six books. I'm the owner of Phenomena magazine, which is the world's largest e-zine on the subject. We have 1.8 million readers, 12 countries, 4 languages. I also own an entertainment business, Zohar Entertainment Group, which is the leading YouTube channels on the subject. And I'm also in constructions of a theme park with Media Invest Entertainment called Chariots of the Gods, based on Eric von Daniken's UFO work and ancient mysteries. We also run the most comprehensive UFO and paranormal courses, which are currently the most comprehensive in the world. It's like, what don't I do?
I was going to say, there's a lot of bullet points next to your credentials, huh?
Like I say, it's what I haven't done now, to be honest with you, really,
Well, for this particular episode, and I cover all of this on the podcast, UFOs, ghosts. There's even going to be health and wellness I discuss. There's going to be other cases where I have a couple of friends of mine that are police that are going to look into some cold cases. But for our episode, you pretty much cover it all. I feel like we're going to have a good little chat.
Yeah, I would say I love all the subjects, all of them. It's all intertwined. Anyway.
When you got involved with parapsychology,
yes.
So you're basically studying the psychology of the person that's having the event happen to them, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's different types of obviously parapsychology. In the UK, we have a number of different forms. Anomalistic psychology is a form of parapsychology. But then, obviously you can get into, the extrasensory perception and the testing and that sort of thing. For me, it was about advancing the subject, about the current knowledge in regarding paranormal mechanics. That's where I kind of specialize.
Huh. So more of an investigator to look into the phenomenon.
Yeah, advanced research. I'm a member of a number of think tanks in regarding the subject. We're trying to move it on, advance the subject. We're trying to learn more new areas of research.
I guess to open, what do you find so far as let's touch ghosts first, right?
Okay. Well, when we're talking ghosts, we're talking usually figures and not apparitions, anything else but figures.
Right.
UK, I live in the UK, which is, you could say, it's probably the paranormal central,
as I've been learning, yeah.
yeah. We've just got so much history. That's pretty much probably contributes to that.
Well, a lot of war too, right? A lot of war in that region for hundreds of years.
So many wars. In fact, I think we only have had about 3 or 4 years of peace. There's always some war going on,
True.
But if it's not with the Scots, it's with the Wales, or it's with the Irish, and it's backwards and forwards. And this is how it's been for many times. That was before we had overseas invaders, So there's always been inner battles for obviously for the hierarchy and the royals and all that sort of thing. There were just even battles between clans. It's just so much history in the UK. And of course, dealing with the paranormal is it's an interesting subject because we break it into different areas. When you talk about ghostly phenomena such as hauntings, we kind of break our hauntings down into different categories. We kind of residual phenomena, which is more like a recording and probably shouldn't really be called hauntings, to be honest with you, if there is more a mundane explanation, even if it's just, preternatural and we don't completely understand what's actually going on there. And then secondly, we have the interactive, or we could say intelligent type hauntings, where they're definitely aware of the the individuals in that environment and the environment at the time itself. So we have many of those cases in the UK, and some of those are localized, we believe, through research. If we find a connection between the phenomena and the location, such as an old lady haunting a house where she used to live, as an example, we kind of call that a localized haunting. But we do have an occasion when we don't find that research, like a home which is only 3 years old, not known to be built on anything unusual but fields, and is haunted by a Second World War soldier. We just find no connection whatsoever. Then we kind of just list it as a possible translocational haunting. It's just like there's no connection there as far as we are aware. Doesn't mean there isn't, just means that we didn't find it. And of course, then we get into the poltergeist stuff, which is where we do really very much specialise in the poltergeist infestations. Though I'd still consider them very rare, even though I've only investigated 6 in 39 years. It kind of tells you that how we look at the phenomena is...
the difference between the poltergeist and other ghosts. Poltergeists are aggressive, right?
Not always.
No?
Not always. No. Sometimes they're very helpful. Sometimes, they like to call tricks and things. In some cases, they're quite playful. It can reach, obviously, to things like that. There are certainly more aggressive type poltergeists in the environment than those that aren't. But we do have occasionally poltergeist disturbances which don't seem to reach that form of level. In some cases, they've been seen to give money, and help out when things have gone missing. Even though that you do traditionally still do the stacking of objects and moving things around and the audible disturbances, sometimes we do get, not many, but we do get few. So it's not a rule of thumb that they're always aggressive. But I'd say the majority are definitely seem to be demonstrative of aggression.
Huh. I would be an inappropriate poltergeist, that I know. I think my intent would be very inappropriate. But so when you were saying earlier about the ghost, that it's a newer home, it's 3 years old, and there's no history there. In my imagination, so again, everything I do, and you'll learn this about me over time, is fueled by childhood imagination along with childhood curiosity, and I'm trying to satisfy it. So when I hear that, what comes to mind is that these spirits or ghosts or whatever they may be, they just travel, right? They're just wandering around, and perhaps maybe that house, for whatever reason, felt appealing for them.
Absolutely. And that's the only conclusion we can reach, is that some of these things are literally translocational, can move from one place to another. Some of them are very much tied to the homes and locational phenomena, when they're haunting a building where once they lived, for an example, castles, stately homes. Sometimes you see them walk through walls when once there was a doorway there. Sometimes you only see them from the knee high because the original flooring is, a foot and a half lower than the floor currently. So sometimes they're very remnant of the past in those locations.
Huh. So hypothetically speaking, someone contacts you, they're like, hey, there's I don't want to say haunting. There's some abnormal activity at my home, and I believe it to be an apparition. Do you have a protocol for yourself that you follow by?
Oh, well, yes. We've provided protocols all across the country, all the city councils, private tenants associations, private landlords. We provided their protocols. They use our protocols for protection of the clients, really. I mean, at the end of the day, people still want to rent their homes. Businesses still do. And sometimes things can be problematic especially when the media get hold of things and things get out of hand. And it causes them issues, financial issues, if they can't rent their homes. So we wrote protocols for them. They pretty much got them. And I think the last one that was distributed was about 4 years ago for Stirling Council in Scotland, where I did some work for them. But our protocol basically starts with, does it warrant an investigation, an active investigation? But not everything sometimes warrants an active investigation. There are many people quite happy to jump out and get all the gear out and go flying out there to people's homes on a whim. But we tend to go through a protocol of, does it warrant an active investigation? I mean, is it currently still happening, the phenomena? Is there witnesses? Are people having profound experiences? Are there children in the environment? There's a scoring scale. And of course, once it reaches a certain score, then obviously, the red light flashes and of course we intervene. So everything really for the beginning is kind of interviewing and giving it some, see if it warrants an active investigation. If it does, then yeah, absolutely, we're quite happy to assist. We've had a number of people relocated because of disturbances.
So now here's another, for instance, you go to site, you find out that the apparition or whatever it may be, it is aggressive. It's not a nice guy. What are measures taken to either remove it or deal with it?
Well, we don't remove spirits because we're a parapsychological unit. I mean,
good point.
First of all, I mean, very much so. Not many people, catalysts or mediums, come knocking on our door for going through test procedures. It doesn't really happen at all, though we do have a couple of individuals which have been tested through the scientific establishment of parapsychology and are absolute definites in catalysts. They are somehow connected with the phenomenon in that location, enhancing or obtaining information, not in a mediumistic way, but direct communication sources. We do that if it's necessary. Most of the time, if it's a rented accommodation and there is evidence of such stuff happening, sometimes we might talk with the people that they're renting the homes from, have them relocated. Sometimes those homes are left fallowed. When I say fallowed, I mean that they are boarded up for 12 months. There's void of any electrical input coming into the house. So whatever is in there, we are trying to starve it out, basically.
Right.
In some cases, that actually does work. It's been helpful, especially on a couple of poltergeist cases. So we do know also there's a method of starving the poltergeist phenomena. It's called starving the phenomena, the protocol, and it's basically about educating individuals how they react in regarding stress and vexation to their experiences. The less vexation, the less incidents, because the incidents are utilized to create fear, and fear obviously creates the emotion and the vexation, which phenomena in a parasitic way feeds upon to create the next act. So you end up with this cycle of incidents going on and on and on, and sometimes they usually require being fed by performing acts in front of people. They're very resourceful phenomena, the poltergeist. They always want to make sure that it isn't mistaken for something that they may have just misunderstood. It is got to have that reaction that it's witnessed as a paranormal act to get the rise, get the vexation, the stress from the individuals experiencing it. So obviously the process of that sometimes means that we have to relocate people and leave places fallow for a duration of time. It has been successful a few times doing that.
Huh. It sounds like almost like an antagonistic child, right? You feed it the intention, and it like thrives on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do know that, most poltergeists seemingly are attracted to vexation. If we look statistically at the poltergeist phenomenon, those people that have been adversely affected by it in their environments, we see a pattern. And that pattern is people who are living stressful lives. It could be financial difficulties, it could be poor living conditions, it could be family issues, it could be a number of different things. But they do seem to associate, not with everybody, but they seem to be selective in regarding where they manifest. And when they seem to manifest in those locations, there's usually a vexation cycle that's already present.
Well, it makes sense because they want attention. And people that I don't know if it's true or not, but I imagine when someone's depressed in a really low state, your brain's activity is a little greater, right? It stops you from sleeping when you're stressed out. It can cause you to have health issues. And, for whatever it may mean, maybe it opens a state of mind that they weren't present to prior, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, originally there was a rule of thumb. I think it was initially wrote by the Society of Cyclical Research in London many years back, that they wrote it down as a rule of thumb that poltergeists, they seemingly only infest homes where they have a target, a catalyst or focus to feed upon. And if you remove the individual, you remove the phenomena. But we are learning that isn't always the case. There are several cases where the individuals have been relocated and a phenomenon has been present in that environment. So not always does the phenomena follow the individuals. Most of the time they're in proximity, but it isn't a rule of thumb. So we can't say in all cases if you remove the focus, you remove the phenomena. That isn't always the case.
Yeah, and and I enjoy our conversation so far. I mean, you have a very scientific approach, which I've spoken to some other paranormal investigators, and there's a strong presence of religion, and I understand it. I get it. Look, I don't doubt anything. I don't know enough to doubt anything. And again, this childlike curiosity I have, I always ask people, especially people of science, is there anything we have science related, like perhaps some form of technology or machine where we could maybe
machine, but we are breaking down the phenomena. We're looking at the mechanics and the physics of the phenomena. What we are finding is that the poltergeist phenomena, as an example, kind of has a rule book. They kind of do things in a progressive manner, starting with audible disturbances and then object manipulation. Then it's obviously sometimes it can reach to manifestations, and then into physical interactions, and then sometimes even worse, it can starts reaching into oppression and psychological disorders. You're not far away from the demological stuff then, and those that do reach that usually have a close connection with religion. It seems that those which have highest religious beliefs are the most persecuted by this phenomenon that reaches that level. But there does seem to be a rule book. I mean, what we're noticing now through research, what people have reported, and through our own research on-site investigations over the last 30 years in parapsychological matters, is that the displacement of objects, the movement of objects in poltergeist disturbances, on many occasions, the distance, the displacement of the object is measured. And just an example, 43.2 inches it's moved. We know where it was. We've approximately drawn up the displacement amount of how much it's moved to point B. We start to see reoccurring numbers. And I don't think that's not random. Reoccurring numbers with displacement are not a random manifestation. It seems to be an ordered. There's some order to it. There's a mechanism to it, then, if that's the case, an intelligent mechanism to it.
Well, you're saying you're finding a pattern, right? A similar pattern.
There's an absolute pattern to it, yeah, which means that there's far more than just random events taking place here. Secondly, most interestingly, is that we had an apport take place. It disappeared for roughly about 96 minutes. It was a large coffee mug. It was placed on the side, ready for a drink, and then just fantastically disappeared, just gone for 96 minutes, turned up in a completely most obvious place where it couldn't have been. Of course, displacement was measured, but we did have the opportunity to analyse it, because we thought to ourselves, is anybody actually analysing these reports? So what we did is we talked with the person who was having the disturbance. They were having daily experiences, usually around about 5 and 6 o'clock at night onwards to the early hours of the morning, every single night. It reached quite a peak value there. And we said, look, can we take the mug and have it analysed? And we said, have you got any others? Have you got any more of these mugs? Well, luckily for us, she'd purchased 4 of these mugs as a set at Christmas, and she had in her cupboard the other 3. So we added the apported mug, and we took her bench test mug, one which wasn't, and we went and took it to the university, and we had it analysed. This was atomic analysis, microscopy, atomic microscopy. When we break it down, we start to look at what it's made of. Is there any differences within the mug? Though that both mugs weighed exactly the same, which is 3.19 grams, they could not feel any different. They didn't look any different. In fact, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But under the microscope, they were different. And now there was a difference so much that if we had to put it on a scale, the mug which was apported was more likely not the mug at left, because of the massive amounts of dithermic reaction and alteration from that mug. Now, we were trying to figure out, could it be the process of the materialization and dematerialization happening, which is causing that? But we couldn't confirm it, because we're dealing with a physics that was pretty much unknown. But we cannot rule out the factors, is that it could even be a mimic phenomena. We just do not know. But what we did find there were two very important things that come from this. The first one was when we got the reports back on the diathermic reactions, we knew we'd seen this before somewhere. And it took us ages. We couldn't think, where have we seen this diathermic reaction before? I know we've seen it, and it took us months to find it. And that was because we were looking through paranormal phenomena in our filing cabinets, and it actually wasn't in the paranormal phenomena, it was in the UFO phenomena. Huh. And it was a case where a UFO had manifested close to the ground, affected the plants in that area, and the plants went off for analysis. And what was done on the plants was something referred to as chemical traumatology tests. Under the chemical traumatology tests, exactly the same diathermic reactions were seen in the plants as in the mug. So we were trying to come up with, what could possibly cause that? Is that the emitting field or the item itself caught within the range of the apportation is utilizing the same physics of manifestation.
So the
UFO suddenly appears is seemingly, if not the same, physics that are involved.
So what you're finding on the plants are similar to what you're finding in the morgue?
In the mug, the diathermic reactions in the mug, in the cells of the mug, matched the diathermic reactions in a traumology test of the actual chemical analysis of the plants. They were identical, absolutely identical.
Oh, I see. So, on the mug versus, I see what you're saying. So there's similar. I see what you're saying. There's similarities in the mug and the plants at a chemical level. Are you finding a lot of parallels with
yes,
ghosts and UFOs, and there's a lot of parallels there?
Well, I would say, if anybody asked me years ago, I'd say UFOs was a different subject completely, but with the circles I keep and the information and the people I talk with, it's very much a parapsychological phenomena, a paranormal phenomena. It's a psi phenomena. A lot of this stuff in UFOs, we've been led to believe, look up to the skies, they're extraterrestrial, they're traveling to the distances of space to travel to Earth. This phenomenon has been right under our noses all this time, forever.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot. I started getting into this because I've always been fascinated by it. In my teens and in my 20s, I didn't really give it a second thought. You get busy, and I was a very active person. Recently got more involved with it again because, again, in 2017, the United States government released the photos and videos of the UFOs, and then COVID sat me down for quite a while, and I got to watch documentaries both with UFOs and ghosts and afterlife. And so now the more I read, I'm finding a lot of, and I asked this to another person on the podcast. I don't mean to offend anyone when I say this, but I see a lot of similarity between the faith and religion and some of the faith people have in UFOs. And it seems similar the way they believe in it, right?
Very clever. It's very clever how it's been done this, because someone a long time ago divided these subjects into different boxes. We had the ghost guys would deal with the UFO guys would deal with the ghost guys. Do you know what? The only way we're going to get answers is tearing down those walls, because we are dealing with something what we refer to as phenomenology. It consists of so many things in the paranormal and the UFO altogether, and it's the same for cryptids. We are really realizing now, not the cryptozoology stuff, not the possibility of a real Bigfoot's being out there. That's very feasible. But where these creatures are being seen, red glowing eyes, and cannot feasibly be in existence in those locations, and there are paranormal attributes, that they're generating EMF, that they're producing paraacoustics, they're producing noise far louder than it could be ever generated. We do know that happens in the paranormal. It happens. They manipulate the sounds. To our ears, we can't tell the difference. It's only when you analyze it, you start to realize, hang on a second, that's not human vocals. Hang on a second, that's not a real noise of that event. It's amplified. It should be 39 decibels on action. It's 62. How does it do that? Because it's manufactured. This is what can happen in the paranormal. It happens in some cryptid incidents. There's a connection between a lot of this phenomena.
I agree with you, because we don't know the power of frequency of things we can't hear. An example would be, there's whistles that we could use that dogs hear, we can't hear. We don't know if there's other frequencies that we can't perceive, right?
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, a perfect test was our transplacement test. Now, we were working with Olympus at the time, who makes recorders. And the recorders were all the same, brand new, off the bench, and they were there, and they were sponsoring us and looking at the equipment. And as we were testing it on location, we had a 10-second record on 3 different devices, all the same make, all the same model, in a silent location for 10 seconds. That's all, 10 seconds. On the first recording equipment, there was a female voice. On the second one was a male voice, and on the third one was pops and clicks. Nobody heard anything, so it wasn't audible. It wasn't within our 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz range of hearing. Yet the equipment is only designed to record 20 to 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Why would it record something we might not be able to hear? It's just not designed to do that, those particular recorders.
Right.
How did it get on there? We discovered the fact is that the phenomena places it on the items. It can target one item, put that on it. It can target another and put that on it. And it can target the third one and put something different on it. They can target. Then we also realised that they can target individuals because we're equipment as well.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not even utilising our eardrum. It's going beyond that. It's planting it right in us. So we hear things. Other people might think, well, I didn't hear anything. But then some people have said, well, I've heard it and I've heard it, but the recorders in the environment didn't record it. It's been transplaced. So the phenomena has this capability of transplacing onto equipment and into the individuals as well, because we're equipment. Really.
Well, as I learned the hard way, we have crystals and fluids in our ear canal that could be affected by radio waves or sound waves that are otherwise you can't hear naturally, right? I learned that because of a sinus infection, by the way.
Yeah, it's exactly, you are right, because you have things now called the cochlear device, and it fastens to it's a device that fastens to the heads of individuals that have had hearing problems, born deaf, etc. And what it does is it creates a vibrational noise and frequency down the ear canal, not through the eardrum. It does it through the ear canal, the liquid in the ear canal, causing enough vibrations for the brain to recognize speech. And for the first time, these people are starting to hear.
Right. Yeah.
And yet the eardrum's not even used.
Think how powerful it is on your equilibrium, let alone how you're perceiving speech.
Yeah. So there's a whole new area of research that's required here in the parapsychological matters regarding the mechanics of the paranormal, because we want to break it down. We're figuring out, that a lot of this UFO phenomena, they're generating infrasonics. We don't hear it because it's infrasonics. In mutilation phenomena, they're causing 18, 19 hertz, which is a fair frequency. And they're doing that, obviously, to just increase cortisone and adrenaline at the time they're taking the fluids from the body. There is probably reasons for that. It's probably something to do with immunity. But the same thing is happening in the environments, but people don't know when the UFO incidents are happening because they don't hear it. But insects do. Sometimes birds do.
Yeah.
That's why you got all these times when it suddenly becomes silent. Because
that's how birds migrate on magnetics and high pitch, right? And bats the same. So there's a guy I'm friends with on LinkedIn. His name's Rick Warner, and he has a website, and it's called Extraterrestrial Research Center. And from time to time, he sends me information to read about, and some of the stuff he sent me has blown my mind. Because again, I'm new to this, so I'm learning as I go, and I'm very open-minded. I don't doubt anything until there's absolute something on the table saying I should. There's no reason to doubt it. I take everyone's information.
Yeah, and we're chipping away at the block. We can't stay static any longer, Adam. Everybody's getting fed up in the parapsychological department. We cannot stay static anymore. We've got to move on, otherwise we're never going to get the answers. And the first thing we have to do is break all down those boxes and those walls and start looking at the metaphysics, the spiritual, the paranormal, the ufological, and start throwing it all in the box and saying, just say it as it is. I mean, right back in the days of Project Blue Book, the Blue Book officers were actually going out, but it was all for show anyway, because we know that the Blue Book stuff was all for show. And what they were doing is, prior to going out and seeing Mrs. Brown as an example, to interview about her UFO experience, they'd pick up the phone to the reporters and say, look, Blue Book officers are going to Mrs. Brown, this is her address, we're going to be there this time. And you know what, the reporters were there, and they take photographs and video or whatever, to make it all look very good. The Blue Book officers are tending to doing a great job. In fact, they didn't even fill out any reports. When these people reported that, not only did they experience UFO phenomena, but since that night, they started having paranormal stuff take place. The Blue Book officers saying, look, we don't want any of that ghosty stuff. It's not going in the report. We're not. Tell us about the UFO, Mrs. Bell, and stick to the matter. That was the problem, because it's always been intrinsic with people who have UFO experiences. Spielberg put the poltergeist scene in Close Encounters. I say to people all the time about the Close Encounters, third kind, the poltergeist scene, and people say, what poltergeist scene? I said, when everything started moving around in the kitchen. When the Hoover starts moving around on its own, taps start turning, screws start coming out. That is poltergeist. And he knew, because he had reports, and he wanted to portray the phenomenon as best he could in them days. And I tell you what, he did a cracking job considering how old that film is. And he was letting elements in there to say, there is a connection. There's a connection here. And there always has been. But unfortunately, it got divided, pushed into different areas. And these people from each camp were dealing with each other. And unfortunately, we're never going to get all the answers until we start looking at it as a whole.
The problem is this, and I agree with what you're saying. And here's my personal belief. Maybe I'm montage, you could say, but all information is good information. Bad information or good information, any information is good. Where we have to learn to do is take all the information and learn how to filter it adequately.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're going to miss something. And I say this because on Facebook, I'm on this group. It's called UFO Hunters. And I enjoy them. I'll tell you why, because every so often someone will post something. I'll look at it. And then before you know it, I'm in this rabbit hole where I'm reading this study I was completely unaware of prior. So all information is good information. You just have to learn how to filter it correctly. And you definitely need a network. And that's what I'm doing, Steve.
Well, that's a really good idea, because the problem is that internet over the years has become a bit of a minefield of disinformation, and it's purposely put out there. It is absolutely purposely put out there, because there are people that don't want you to make, to work it all out. I mean, the government's known about a lot of phenomena since the 80s, especially the 80s, and especially in 1982, we figured a lot of this stuff.
Well, as our technology started to advance, our ability to be more aware of it is undeniable. Right?
Absolutely. So, we've got some amazing technology now.
I told people this in recent podcasts too. Like this, when it came to the gray alien, and in my theory on the gray alien is that it's robotic. It's a very advanced robot with the consciousness uploaded to it.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, they're like worker bees, really. But what I've always considered is the fact is that, do we always see the mask? Is the mask changing and the phenomena staying the same? I mean, if we can track back this phenomena, we've tracked it back to 700 BC. We can't go no more because there isn't no historical documentation.
Right.
As far as we know, could have always been here. But it appeared as this, and in biblical times, it was a light craft, and it was angels. Of course, angels really only.
It's because it's what we understood, right? It's what we knew.
Because, if you look at the phenomena, how it's transitioned through the eras, in the Second World War, we had ghost rockets. And then we had Foo Fighters, which is both fall into the category of definitely warring vehicles, flares and rockets and all sorts of things. And then, of course, we had the Phantom airships around the airship era, just prior to the airship era. It's seemingly, are we seeing something which is not being portrayed? It's a perception of something. I mean, I've had people who clearly have had some type of encounters. But the crafts, it looks like, when he explained the craft, it said it was something like, had rivets on it, and it looked like something from the 1950s. This thing couldn't even look like it got off the ground. So I have to question, are we really seeing, are they all masks? Is there one phenomena which we can track back in time, but the mask seems to change from period to period? And now it's the grey aliens, sometimes it's the reptilians. Where's all the space brothers disappeared to? There was an era of that in the 1950s. So I have to question about how our perceptions are actually experiencing these things.
Right. That's a good point. And I say this a lot. With an advanced technology, whatever it may be, what we perceive may just be what we're allowed to perceive. It's not impossible. I think we're under a long-term study from as far as UFOs go.
You've got it. Absolutely. That's the nail on the head. That's exactly what's happening. And it continues to this day. It's no different than they have been doing for thousands of years, but it's seemingly the same thing that's happening. It's just transition. The front screen has changed over the years. Yes, we experienced that. But, there are a number of things we do know about this phenomena, that the UFO phenomena, or now we want to wrap it up as UAP and forget the last 70 years, of course, that it is associated to positive magnetic anomalies. These positive magnetic anomalies are scattered around the planet. If you do research on the most significant cases, we did 2,000. We stopped at 2,000. We couldn't carry it on. There was a 97% match. That cannot happen accidentally. There's a connection between these locations of positive magnetic regions and the phenomena. Now, when we talk to people in these locations, what do we get? We get the sightings of crafts, UFOs, popping in and popping out as if they're entering into our reality and popping out of our reality. We have cryptids. We have paranormal cases. We have heightened areas of what are strange, really strange stuff. And of course, quite worryingly, disappearances. And that falls exactly in line also with these. I've done a lot of talks with David Pilates on this, and the areas where he's picking out are the areas that was on our maps. In fact, we could pretty much go to these places and experience stuff, and we did. Just by working out the surveying and the statistics, we went to certain locations and experienced for first hand. It materialized.
That's
like
where that's where. So again, Steve, I'm going to eventually get out there and do a documentary about maybe a year from now. I'm doing the podcast. I'll do it I'll do it as I go. But I got a camera. I want to go to the spots, and I'm building a network, and you're going to be part of that. And everyone I'm speaking to in the podcast, I'm going to have this network, so I'm going to build a map of where to go. Because I got to see. I have personally, really I've never gotten to see anything. I'm desperate to see something. You know what I mean?
Well, do you know what the thing is, Adam? All the TV shows we see, just a regurgitation of the same thing over and over. Yeah. I've had this experience. This is another photo. This is another video.
Yeah.
It's just adding another stone to the mountain we've got. Are we getting any answers? The problem is nobody's going forward into those areas. People don't even want to. In fact, I can tell you off kick here that people have talked to me from MUFON, who were state managers, and said, we were starting to click on this and we were told not to investigate it.
Yeah, see, that's unfortunate.
Not go down that road.
And here's where I sit with that. I'm going to go anyway. I'm going to use my network to find out where to go. And if someone stops me, I'll document it away. And if I don't come back, well, it's been really nice talking to everybody, but I'm going.
Well, you know what? I will always say, I lecture all over the world, and I say the same thing to everybody when it comes to UFOs. Say it as it is. I got invited, here's a typical example, I got invited to the Ozarks to talk about the phenomena. And most of the people that were sat in the audience in tears because of what I said. Huh. I had people coming up to me saying, I've introduced my daughter to this phenomena, upset, crying, and you wouldn't have me back again. But and fine, that's fine. But I have to say to them, it's not all love and light. There are incidents that we have got on record that the government has very well tidied up and cleaned them away, of incidents where people have been severely injured and even killed by this phenomenon.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's not something I'd drag my daughter out in the middle of the field one night, because I don't know what I'm going to expect to have happen. And I will always say to people, the best way to deal with it, and do you know what, if the ghost hunter guys are listening to this, they'll get it straight away. There is a mechanism within our body, that survival sense. When we feel that tingling sensation, when the hairs go up on your body, it's saying your survival system, it's your skin, it's the biggest organ on your body, and it's still with us. And it's telling us things. Even if we can't see it or hear it, he knows it's something not right in that environment. It's saying, get the hell out of Dodge. It's saying, back up. Something's not quite right. It's a warning mechanism.
Right.
Listen to that warning mechanism. If you have that experience, then you don't take steps forward. You take steps in retreat, away from the phenomenon. Because sometimes it's not all love and light. Some people have experiences and wish they'd never engaged it, to be honest with you. And I have to say, sometimes that can happen. And what's the worst thing what people do on skywatches is that they fill themselves with refined sugar. Now, what refined sugar does in candy bars and Coca-Cola is that it stops it causes adrenal weakness instantly on ingestion. In other words, it's disconnecting you from that fight and flight response. It's disconnecting you from your survival sense. So it's nullifying you. So you're not when your body's trying to scream at you to say, take some steps back, don't go forward on this one. You're disconnected, you're not experiencing it, because a lot of people will just fill themselves up with refined sugar. If they are going out there and they're likely to witness phenomena, starve themselves for 72 hours of refined sugar. We all like refined sugar, but just starve yourself of it for 72 hours and you will experience the difference in your fight or flight response. It'd be very, very acute.
I could agree with that because I stopped with everything I eat now, and even like right now I have water with honey in it, right?
Yeah, brilliant.
I try to avoid any kind of refined sugar. I agree with that. I do notice one thing. I am I'm much more alert. You know, I don't have any crashes through the day. Pretty consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. People don't realize.
Another subject too, and I get hit with this, or I've been asked. I do a lot of off-air interviews, small ones, large ones, and so I'm seeing another pattern. And I'm glad we had this conversation about it because there is definitely some kind of parallel with possession and abduction. I'm definitely seeing parallels there.
Yes, there is. Now, I don't get into this very often on the darker side of stuff because people just don't want to hear this.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't, but it's got it's like that all information is good information thing. You got to learn how to filter it, right? And you got to talk about it.
You've got to. I mean, I first was alerted to this back in the 1990s when I was aware of specialized programs being conducted by official establishments for the government dealing with the UFO phenomena, and people didn't want to work it because it had connotations against their religion. And I was thinking, hang on, I'm going to just go back a bit. What does that mean? You know, I mean, they were fearing that these things are somehow associated with demonic stuff. That's what they were thinking about. That's what they were worried about. They had problems trying to deal with the phenomenon because they thought it had correlations with biblical writings of the darker stuff. And they are right in many ways. You know, I mean, it's all about interpretation at the end of the day. What are you experiencing? Angel or demon and all that sort of stuff. You know, I mean, it's very, very problematic. Very, very problematic.
Well, it's true because I watched this study regarding the ancient Greeks and their technology, and I was blown away by what the ancient Greeks were inventing. And I asked myself, why did that stop? And it turned out the Roman Empire took over. Catholicism was at the head of that. So we're essentially 2,000 years behind the ball as far as technology goes. We would be 2,000 years more advanced today, probably already interplanetary, had we not had that stop. You know, I'm not fully blaming religion for it, but it's the general public, the general people in that belief system. And if you're inventing something and you made a clock or you made a liquid, it's witchcraft, right? It's insanity. So
it's true. It's very true. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on out there that we don't get told the general public. Only in certain circles you start to find out certain stuff, and it just doesn't get out. You know, for instance, you know, if you talk about just some of the ancient sites around the world, look at Egypt for an example. What they don't tell you is that there are mounds and pits full of metal dust, metal dust. You know, it's just whatever it was, they were all corroded away to dust. They didn't last the years, obviously, because machinery doesn't. Machinery, you could put a car engine out there, yeah, and if in 50,000 years' time, it's nothing but dust.
You're right, yeah.
You know, they are finding the evidence in the stone that they had machinery. They had to have machinery.
Yeah,
but the machinery won't last. It will not last. It will
Graham Hancock touched something on that, on the what civilizations existed prior to what we know, and he's got some pretty compelling evidence. It's undeniable, right? That's like for me.
Absolutely, and he's right. We are species with amnesia. This is probably our second or third cycle. You know, we've kind of reached a peak performance, and something catastrophes happened and set us back, killed 3/4 of humanity. Most of the people that we know, I mean, I don't know how to build a rocket engine. Somebody out there does. But are they going to survive the catastrophe? And if not, then that's lost. Right. And we have to kickstart again. And this kickstart program that seems to be going on. Seems like a certain civilization reaches peak performance and then something significant happens and we kind of get back to square one again and have to redo it again in their own way. I have to say, though, you know, the technological advances that we have now is just not all purely by chance. I mean, some of this stuff which is being gained is not just through the process of just education and science.
I think some of that's DNA related. I think that some people inherited those ideas, right?
Absolutely. You got it. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? When you talk to some of these guys, scientists and stuff, and you think, where did he really get their inspirations from? They're coming in dreams, coming in downloads and things like that.
Yeah, let me give you an example of that. There are people on this planet some I know, some I don't, that they're born, they want to be a rock star. They're born, they want to be a baseball player. They're born, they want to be an engineer. It's in their DNA to dream that way. No one groomed that to them. They just, at childhood, when you look at a baseball player and you want to be a baseball player, it's in your DNA. You inherited that somewhere through the genomes of whatever to be a competitor, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I completely agree with you.
I do. You're absolutely spot on. And that went all the way into an organisation in Australia, which I work with, which is Free, F-R-E-E, and it was Edgar Mitchell founded it, the astronaut, and they specialise in the idealism that humans are going through genetic changes by something else. Something else is still changing us. We are changing. We're a species which is constantly changing.
It's true.
I mean, far from the fact we had 62 different types of various humans living on the planet, not far apart from each other. In fact, some of them living side by side. So it was all evolution out the window. But they can't tell you that. And they had to keep it quiet. The Catholic Church kept it quiet. The Smithsonian Institute, which was working with the Catholic Church, kept it quiet. They were dumping bodies out at sea because we can't find bodies with 2 sets of teeth and they're 9 foot tall, can we? You know, I mean, it's just silly things that are out there.
It is bizarre.
And it can't be hushed up anymore, you know. So really, we don't know much, to be honest.
To be a successful species, we really need to be more open-minded. And again, I say this a lot. I can't repeat this enough. It's 2021, and there's still racism. Why are we still dividing ourselves? It's insanity.
Crazy.
You know, like, forget the idea of aliens.
Any sense to me at all.
Yeah, forget the idea of aliens wanting to talk to us. If we're going to evolve as a species, we really got to erase some of these lines in the sand, like the red and blue.
Well, I'm horrified. You know, if I was an alien species looking down on planet Earth and humans, I'd be absolutely horrified. You know, we watch those horror films that are alien and things. Maybe it should be humans in there.
Yeah, like, that's why I tell people I think we're under a long-term study because, and I've said this in previous podcasts, but if you and I, Steve, are walking through Central Park, we saw an ant pile, and they were driving cars and flying planes and throwing bombs. We would close the park and just watch that as long as possible to see how it unfolds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are the watchers. They are the observers. They're even in the recent current wars. You know, I remember watching the Gulf War, and I was really interested in the live streams of news because the live stream news teams were filming objects in the sky as if they were just sat there watching Scud missiles and things going backwards and forwards and warring taking place. They were just watching. They were just sat there watching, as they did during the Second World War, as they did in the First World War. You know, they monitored pretty much everything.
Yeah. I mean,
now, people always complain, oh, God, you know, what if they do this? What if they do that? I said, look, if they wanted to first strike, they would do, and they could do it in a day because they know every single military base. They know every single nuclear plant. You know, every single military nuclear facilities, you know, launch areas.
They monitor military operation.
If we were invading another country, we'd say, okay, we want to observe their military, observe their airports, observe their refineries, observe their nuclear capabilities, the electrical capabilities, everything, and monitor them and note where they are. And that's what they've done all around. We would
definitely monitor their social dynamic to see where the flaws are that can be. If they needed that can be, you could infiltrate with ease.
Oh, easily. I mean,
you know, it's scary to say it. It's unfortunate to say, Steve, but there's a strong chance that we're just a really interesting reality show to them, right? So.
It could be. I even question the reality.
Yeah, because
what is reality? Do we all perceive reality the same? I mean, you know, I've seen a couple of quirky things in my life. I have to question.
Yeah,
that's a bit odd. It's like a bit of a computer program. What's going on here? The coincidence pattern. You know, when you get into this subject of UFOs and paranormal, you get what is referred to as the multiple serendipities.
Yeah,
the multiple serendipities, these connections that are made, and they're so profound in these circles that you keep. It's as if that shouldn't happen, but it does, and statistically, it shouldn't. You know, it's as if something has to be at play there. You know.
Yeah, you know, as a kid, my aunt, I lived in Brooklyn as a kid, and my aunt, Maureen, would, one night we were sitting in the living room, and we were joking. There was a show called DC Follies we used to watch, but anyhow, she's like, if you ever want real entertainment, just open a window. We're in New York City. Just look out the window. And she's not kidding. In that area of Brooklyn, there was always some nonsense happening down by the bodega or just in the street. And so, if they're watching us, God knows, we're probably a top 10 hit in their TV series, wherever they may be. So,
true. Yeah, they've been doing it for a very long time.
And then forget it. If you ever really want to see the grim side, just watch Politics. That'll give you the grim side of us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a shame because in politics, like you said earlier, why does the government clean things? Well, because from what I'm finding so far, if it's not 1,000% explainable or easy for them to manipulate into to their agenda, just sweep it away because there's nothing they could touch on it. And I think they learned that in college in debate courses, right? Well, I can't really touch that because I don't have true knowledge on it, and it's not going to serve any kind of benefit to me.
No. I mean, I know that there was a lot of stuff about the UAPs, which came out kind of last few years.
Yeah, and that was safe. That was a really safe disclosure. You know what I mean?
It was. I mean, I think it's pretty much all planned with the Washington Post and the New York Times. I mean, those would never touch UFO stuff. But you know what? There was certainly a plan in action. I remember to the Stars Academy, when it first entered onto our TV screens, they did a big production with all the scientists there, and they threw up a big picture in the background of what was assumed to have been the Tic Tac UFO. In fact, it wasn't. It was actually one of my photographs taken in Manchester in the UK in a place called Eccles in 2005 of a balloon. It was a number one novelty balloon. And I thought, hang on a second, these are all scientists and stuff. How they got my photo? The photograph was only on one particular website. That was a Jeff Rentz.
So that's a photo you took that they have on their emblem?
Yeah, he took it from there and he altered it, light blasted it to make it look a little bit different.
I've tried to reach out to them multiple times and I've gotten nothing.
No, they're very dodgy. It's very dodgy. And from reading between the lines, what's going on also in the background is that they're trying to push for weaponizing space in an official manner, though that they've been doing it probably since 1965. But now it gets to a point where they have to introduce new parties to it, defense programs and things like that, and staff work for them, staff talk. They've got to do it officially at some stage. So they're now applying to do that. But it keeps getting thrown out because they have to break the 1971 Space Treaty Act, you see. So, right. But they're already doing it, but they want it to come out officially that they want to do it. So they're pushing for that. And really, when you present a phenomenon like this, that suddenly enters onto our screens and everyone's talking about concern now. The threat. I mean, God, we've always, if that is the case, then we've always been under threat since we've ever been born, that it's going to require multiple of trillions of dollars. And you have to question, where's that going to go? What's it going to do? Because when they're turning around to Congress and saying, look, you know what? We don't know what constitutes this phenomenon. We don't know what it's about. We need more money. We need time. We need analysis. They've been sat on 70 years of hundreds and hundreds of cases. Much more interesting, much better than the Nimitz and the Roosevelt stuff.
Right.
And yet they've got the audacity to turn around and say, we don't know enough. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well,
it's a good way to kickstart it.
When they say threat, and let's circle back to the ants with the advanced technology, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
We're keeping things at a scale here. Now, let's say ants come out with their own nuclear bomb, which when they set one of those off, it could, to scale, detonate, probably destroy an ant pile, right?
Yes.
That's not really a threat to us. It's when that becomes a threat to us is when they go to scale that could devastate us. Then we squash them, right? So hypothetically speaking, if there is something watching us, are we a threat to them? I don't know. Like, we got to speak to scale of our threat, right?
I don't think we're a threat to them. I think space, is once we start getting out there, and if we're going to act the same way we are, then Yeah,
that's a problem, right? That's why, thankfully, we have the Elons of the world that are going to go. They want to go interplanetary, and it's not to conquer and take over. It's to grow and evolve, right?
Well, that's it. It's the only way to do it because I tell you now, is that their thought pattern is rather than the ecology of Earth. Is that let's get to a stage where we can just get to another planet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of naysayers with Elon. I like everything he does. He's and you could tell he wants to invent, and he really means well by humanity. You don't see this guy flashing around, and
I totally agree.
Yeah, you don't see him in a $50,000 suit hanging out in some grotesque car. He paid for his own Tesla, for crying out loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's privileged enough to say he doesn't have to.
No, there's a lot of stuff goes on out there which we don't really know. I mean, we know that we've got some really clever advances. When I saw the Tic Tac, an example, the proper Tic Tac illustrations from the pilots, the first thing I noticed, it had pitot tubes on, 4 of them, in fact, pitot tubes. These are the little things that come out of the body.
Right.
And the last time I saw pitot tubes was on unmanned aerial vehicles. They're used in connection to satellites, geosatellites, which map the speed, direction, propulsion, anything that has to do with traversity.
Right.
And I thought, that's interesting. And then I started looking at documents from 2014, Israeli military documents. And the Israelis are no strangers to UFOs. I've read many military documents from Israel ones when they're talking about UFOs, and they say, the UFOs, over our facilities, this, that, and the other. And many incidents have been logged on military documents. On this occasion, it says that the CIA were monitoring their military facilities, utilizing pill-shaped CIA drones. And that the pilots, it was a waste of time for them trying to scramble the jets to get them, because they performed the jets 100-1. This is in an Israeli document from 2015.
Yeah, that's a pretty natural default for to blame the other guy, right? That's got to be them.
Well, it is, but let's look at the possibilities of what technology we might actually have. I mean, people said, we can't have anything like a Tic Tac, which is unmanned and can move that fast. And I said, okay, well, let's go back to look at David Adair. David Adair in the early 1960s, he was actually working on it in the late 50s, actually. He made a containment fusion engine, which traveled so fast that you couldn't even see it take off. It traveled all the way to Groom Lake under the eyes of generals, and they wanted that technology. They wanted technology because the containment engine can move this thing at 14,000 miles per hour.
Wow. Now,
he's got all the documents, he's got all the literature, all the information, all the patents, he's got it all. And people, and this was what 1961 or something like that.
Yeah.
He was working in the late 1950s. He started working on things when he was about 10 or 12, just a rocket genius. He talks about
that's factor again. It's in the DNA. It was born to do it.
In the DNA. And if we had something then, that can move at that speed. I mean, we've got recent footage from UFOs moving. We tracked them and had them analysed, moving at 12,000 miles per hour. But the fact is that could we have something that moves fast like that, like a Tic Tac? I mean, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've said to people, it's been 3 years or something like that since Roswell. I mean, if we've got all the brainiest guys in the world, scientists, and an unlimited amount of resources, could we back engineer something like that? And if so, how long? Well, I was surprised to find that it only took 2 years to build an aircraft carrier. 2 years. And a full aircraft carrier. And I think to myself, well, yeah, I think we could build it.
I thought that would take a lot longer. That's basically a city. That's impressive.
Yeah, 2 years. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? It's 2021 now. I'm sure we've got some of these things. I'm sure we find them.
Yeah. I make room for the idea that I say this, if it's America and we have a black project that has that, you bet your ass we're not going to talk about it publicly because it's our black project.
I mean,
but if it were China, they would undoubtedly rub it in our face. They would rub it in our face because what would we be able to do exactly? You know what I mean? So they have.
It's interesting you mention that because I talk to people who who have some inside knowledge about some of the tech stuff from China and Russia. And he said to me, for the last 15 years, there's been a drone war. The drone war. We are in a drone war. Nobody knows it.
I don't doubt that one bit.
Drone technology war. Who's got the best drones? Who can the manless don't need pilots in them because then you can move them at any speed without pilot, problems. And there's a battle.
Yeah, if you rewind time to back when it was the Cold War and prior to, we had the spy planes, the balloons on both sides, might add, not just us, all sides that were doing this.
No, it's no different. Exactly the same.
Yeah. So now we just have drones. They're harder for regular people to detect. Yeah, I could see that being a factor, big time.
Yeah. So, I thought, you know what? I'm halfway there. I thought, I'm okay. I'll accept the fact that it could be our technology, these drones. And if so, why did he want us out? Why did he want to portray it as a UAP? A UFO, an unknown thing? Why did he want to create a threat? Why did he let the pilots go ahead and report it? If it's a real UFO incidents, there's been many times pilots say, you've been told you're not allowed to talk about it. I don't ever do it.
I personally think the UFO and UAPs did the governments a huge favor in regards to that. right?
Of course they do.
Because and you know, I'm not discrediting. Look, what David Fravor saw, unquestionably, you could see his genuine concern, right? And if you look what the Tic Tac is, the Tic Tac has been spoken all through time as cigar shaped. It's been in existence a long period of time.
They saw what they saw,
right?
But at the time of the seeing it, I mean, we go right back to the first time, the Nimitz. If you take the Nimitz, the gimbal, and the Go Fast incidents, and you look very carefully at the logs of what's been going on in that location. Now, we're in a location where it's military. It's a military zone, for naval military zone. There's no ships passing by. There's no flights flying over it.
Right.
You know, it's 47. The nearest to land is 47 miles. It's beyond the horizon. You can't see it. It's a perfect location. New Area 51, really. No better area than 51, actually.
In itself, yeah.
There's just no way you're going to see anything going on out there. So I started to look at the timings. When that first incident took place regarding the Tic Tac was the day after that they'd just been fitted with the newest, latest radar instruments, the new specialized radar systems that allow them to shoot at something that is not even visible or not even on their radar system. There's no specialized machinery that they're using between high altitude aircraft, a satellite system, and these new pieces of equipment in the Roosevelt and the Nimitz. And they see this the day after. They send these pilots out. They experience it. They don't tell the pilots to engage. They don't tell the pilots not to talk about it. You know, they just get rid of the evidence afterwards. You know, because you know, like I say. And then they say questions. Well, you know what? When we turned around and headed back, they knew we ended up being in the location where we were heading back, as if they knew where we were going. Well, yeah, it's likelihood could be that if they were ours, they would do. You know, maybe they're just the pilots are pitted against these things. I know that they did it in 1973 and 74. We had starfighter pilots reporting UFO incidents over testing grounds. And what they were doing was they were seeing this craft was just outperforming them 50-1. And they couldn't understand what the hell it was. Turned out to be the stealth fighter. It was the stealth fighter. They were flying it in 73 and 74, Lockheed. There's photographs and details all about it.
Yeah,
Lockheed's
you know,
I released a book on it.
I recently found out the stealth program was born in somewhere in the 50s because they were building the SR-71s. So that's been around. When you find out something like that, something that was like the stealth fighter was on the drawing board and in production somewhere around the 70s. Imagine today's black projects. Just try to imagine.
Well, maybe some of these black projects are like drones. I mean, maybe who's to say in 20, 30 years' time, we're going to see these as normality. And they suddenly come out with it and say, oh, we've got these new drones now. Yeah. Well, we'd be thinking, well, hang on a second, 30 years ago, it was a UAP. You know? So,
yeah. I mean,
to know. I mean, I can't argue against the fact that they couldn't have picked the best opportune moments to engage these things. Because of the fittings that they had on the Roosevelt and the Nimitz, not just on one occasion, but all three: the gimbal, the Go Fast, and the Tic Tac.
It's true. How do we know we're not testing our own equipment against our own guys in secrecy?
We could be. I mean, I know when I was in the army, they sent us on a 12-mile hike through forest. They never told us that Company B was going to jump us halfway through. They wanted a real action kind of scenario to see how we'd react.
Right.
They're not going to tell us whispers in our ears and say, by the way, you can get 3 miles into the woods and you're going to get jumped by another squadron.
Well, think about think about the training for double agents. Imagine that training. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's very good. I mean, and if it has worked to their advantage, and there is obviously a reason for it, I think it's about defence money. I think a lot of it is about defence money, to be honest with you. I think
of course. Anything out there. If tomorrow you had a toaster that, for whatever reason, when you turned it on, it killed the power in the house next door, they're going to want it. How do we make it work for us? Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because they were showing this infrared footage of this Tic Tac while I actually had video footage of it. I had video footage of it before they even released it because I was gaining it from a friend of mine who was on the Mexican shoreline, and they were recording it for years. And I was seeing that video footage of the Tic Tac long before their even drawings came out. So I matched the drawings to what he was showing.
Yeah, it's funny because the Mexican government reported something like that. I've read there's a lot of reports that are not mainstream media or TV. You're not seeing it. Right. And I was reading that the Mexican government have a bunch of FLIR tape because of the drug traffic. They do a lot of surveillance, and they have tremendous video of all these incidences, right?
They do.
And so when I hear that, it makes me wonder, like, why are we not looking deeper into that? Like, what?
No, I mean, first time I saw it.
It's not like Mexico is a million miles away from United States. It's right there. Right? It should affect us at some. If tomorrow,
I think it was 1999 or 2000 when I first got the video of a Tic Tac, and that's long before the UAP stuff.
Yeah, like imagine if tomorrow a Russian fighter jet was flying over Mexico. You better believe we'd be very interested. Very interested. You know, so.
The thing is that I've seen the phenomena, the real phenomena. I've seen it manifest and demanifest. I've seen it separate. I've seen it become two different things. I've seen it how it interacts with individuals. You know, it's much different than this Tic Tac stuff I'm seeing. You know, there's a different feel to it as well. You know?
A lot of people suggest that they're moving through time, not just space. They're moving through time differently. Like, because if you reference David Fravor when it was in the UAP was where he was, and then it was in his cap point, it has to be that it knew it in time. It knew he was going to be there because it can move through time differently. It had to know.
What makes it very interesting is that the evidence now. I mean, they came out and said ATIP, didn't they? Came out and said, he's got these three ways it travels. You know, and it can fly through the sky, fly through the universe, the space, everything, and even underwater. But actually, the real phenomenon is four. It can travel into land. It goes into the ground, into hillsides, cliffs, mountains, volcanoes. I've seen it. We've been recorded. You know, some of these things don't react to our physical environment. When they hit water, they don't leave a wake.
Yeah, you know what?
No.
You know, 10 years ago, people would have called you crazy. But after that, the United States, the military recorded that unidentified object over the water, and it went into the water with zero splash. But when I saw that video, I got chills because the first thing in my mind is, what the hell can do that?
I think that's the real phenomenon. And I think they have the capability of having a space-time bubble around them or something, and they do not feel any inertias because they're not reacting. They're skimming across our reality. And I said this I mentioned this as a possibility in regarding some of the Phoenix Light stuff, not the lights over the mountain range. I'm on about these very large, huge, boomerang-shaped objects that we're seeing, and they're all set to shimmer. I mean, maybe we're just skirting our reality. Maybe we were just, was it a presence? Maybe it was warning.
I mean, again, then it boils down to how well can we perceive what it is it's doing?
Well, this is the problem. 1 minute they're there, next minute not. And that's the problem we've got. So if they can do that, I think an advanced race has found a way of being able to traverse, not literally through the distances of space like we think, but they've managed to find out a better way of traversing. And that basically was like from jumping from one reality to another and coming back out. You know, because I've seen these just blink of an eye disappear, blink of an eye turn on. And I think to myself, it's happening in key locations. You know, it happened, it doesn't really happen much over Skinwalker Ranch, nobody used to. But, in a recent interview with Bob Bigelow, I mean, I've talked with him a couple of times, and, even he said to me that the phenomena trapped him back home. It affected his life, it affected his family.
Yeah,
there were negative connotations to his experiences.
I've heard things like that. If you make yourself aware to them, that's it, right? Because like anything else, they want attention on that perspective, right?
Oh, they do, yeah. And I've said to people, look, be sure if you really want to get heavily involved in this subject.
Yeah, I do.
Once that door's open, it doesn't shut. They gain their interest from their side, and they'll interact with you.
I'm that weirdo as a kid, and even in my adulthood, when there's something bizarre going on, I go look again. If it were a movie, I'd be dead like a lot. Because I'm always going to look.
My life has become a buzz of it. I'm used to it now. When people go on and say, I've never seen a UFO, and I chuckle to myself sometimes because I see them every once or twice in a month.
Yeah, I've only witnessed.
And I know sometimes when they're there, I just seem to look and, hey, why am I looking out the window at 3 o'clock in the morning? Why did I get up to look out the window at 3 o'clock in the morning and see that in the sky? It is weird, and they interact as well, in a certain way, just like the paranormal does,
Yeah, in a lot of these interviews, I'm finding a pattern in that. A lot of people, it almost seems like they're selected or they have that innate ability. I'm just like, I guess I'm on for. The only thing I've ever saw was this blue or maybe aqua blue orb in the sky, but there was a thunderstorm. I live in Florida. There's a huge thunderstorm, and it didn't move. It just got absorbed by the storm, and I was left to wonder.
They seemingly love storms. I mean, NASA's been filming them in orbit, loving storms for the last 40 years.
Yeah,
they're attracted to that form.
Yeah, for me it sucks because I stood perfectly still waiting for anything because it's the one sighting I had, and it got absorbed by the storm. Like it didn't even move. That was so upsetting.
I know. I mean, it does. It's true. I mean, people ever say to you, if you spend a lifetime in this research, it's going to spend some time with you, and it does. I mean, I have the paranormal acts at my home. I kind of just got used to it.
Well, a lot of that is you have the experience, you've done the investigating, you know where to look, what the signs may be. I like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have some great ones. These security lights on my drive, and CCTV cameras, and the motion detectors. And somebody banged on my front door so loud, like a bailiff was going to break down the door one night.
Right.
And as it's banging, I'm looking out of the window down below, see my front door, couldn't see anybody. My lights are on, the cameras are rolling, always recording. So I thought, so I went down there, nobody there. Huh. And I thought, it's somebody playing a trick. So I went to the CCTV camera system and looked back to see what was banging on the door. And 34 seconds of my camera footage was deleted. At that very moment, 34 seconds just gone. I can see a grey area because when you delete a piece of filming there, it becomes grey, not blue.
Right.
And I just thought, why is that 34 seconds? And I went to that it's the time of the incident. And I thought, it's never happened again. Never happened before.
Yeah, that's strange.
It's just crazy. You don't know where to start telling people things like that. But to me, it's like, yeah, I know they can do that because I've had specialized recorders where you have to delete in run. It's called an in run recorder, which means when you record something anomalous on track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, to delete track 3, you have to delete track 4. You have to go back and delete 4, then 3, and so on. I've had things just disappear. I've had something fantastic. It was okay for me to listen to until I come try and play it back to somebody, and the damn thing's vanished. And it couldn't have vanished because track 4 and 5 was there, but it's taken 3 out on this roll recorder, what we call. It does amazing things with technology, crazy things. Just like Poltergeists can do crazy things. It made over 1,000 phone calls in less than 2 minutes or something in a poltergeist case. The phone system isn't even capable of doing that, and yet it did it.
Yeah, because we don't know what energy it's using, right? I mean, we have no idea.
No idea. We're dealing with the physics, it's unknown. But I tell you, I think what will happen over the next 10 or 20 years is that more and more of these subjects that we're so interested in is start going to be pushing towards the quantum realities, quantum mechanics, the quantum realm. More and more we're going to start figuring out when we get to quantum mechanics that our physics, we've got to just empty that glass.
Yeah, where we're able to manipulate a dimension, right?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, just look at what we found out.
Or even our perception. Our
exactly.
Our extrasensory perception. Elon Musk has got this thing. I think this is going to open Pandora's box. Yes. He's got Neuralink coming, where you attach something to the brain. And I say this a lot for the gray aliens and people in the past said, they're communicating with telepathy. I think they just had a really advanced Bluetooth way back when. But, when that happens, who knows what we're going to be able to perceive when we have that chip in our head? Right now we know the function and why it's there. It's to help medically.
I think we're living in exciting times because we're seeing this advancement in our lifetime.
Right.
No living person at these times have ever seen these advancements so fast. And we're part of it. We're seeing it, Adam, day by day, unfold.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we as a species could leapfrog like our technology. We would be well past any division like race or religion. Yeah. We would be well past that if we could evolve with the same speed of our technology. It would be great.
Yeah. I mean, somebody once said to me, and he would think he's a philosopher guy at a university, he said that there is a majority of humans that live on this planet which are like that. And they are like that because they know intrinsically deep down that they're being held back from progression. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's an interesting theory, because if we subconsciously know that we're held back from progression, we become animalistic because we can't move forward. Right. We want to change. Everybody wants to change. Everyone wants to move forward, but they're stuck in a rut and subconsciously something's not right. And they erupt with it. And I thought that was an interesting theory. Some people might have the finger on the button and know about advancements and how AI is streaming so far ahead now that the new human is on the edge of the horizon. It's very strange times.
It really is.
I couldn't say where humanity will be in 50 years. I just couldn't probably even
Well,
imagine it.
hopefully we have more Elon like-minded people that are looking to better humanity by exploring correctly, right? What's going to benefit us ultimately? Because we're not going to.
I really hope so.
Yeah, we're not going to survive. Our species, if we stay earthbound, we're not going to survive millions of years. It's not going to happen. Eventually, something's going to happen, right? The sun's going to grow to a large state, kill us. An asteroid might come. We don't know. We have no clue. So
we've got to progress. But
I agree.
As some progress, are somebody kept back, and are those that are kept back just stay as they are in that animalistic state. Because quite clear the people I talk to in this field are like that. They're like the progressionists. They want to move forward. They're tired of. Many of them want to disassociate themselves with the human race because of what goes on.
Agreed.
Become shameful about us being part of the human race because of what goes on.
Yeah, it's an atrocity, and we have. It's not like we didn't have plenty of time to learn. We've had ample. So. It's not like this is a brand new thing. Like, oh, we should treat each other better. We've known this. It's a matter of taking that next step. So before we close, Steve, I definitely want you back on in December. Okay. I'm going to have a meet and greet in December with a lot of people I've spoken to on previous podcasts. Maybe a good group of us, MUFON mixed, and we're going to express our end of the year learnings and what we plan to do. Right, and that's somewhere in December. So I'm definitely going to. I can already tell you're going to be a reoccurring entity on this show. I can tell.
Well, I'm trying to push forward. And I've just been contacted by the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. I know Putoff and Eric Davis is associated with that group.
Right.
About me becoming a member because of the work on Project Doorway, which I'm working on, which is about advanced studies of aerial phenomena, which they were very interested in. And of course, I've been doing a lot of research on the metamaterial stuff and terahertz frequency. So. Once the source told them about that, I think it spiked their interest. I already know some stuff already, not telling me, but I'm eager to learn.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. I love to learn new things. So before we close, one case that, revolving around maybe something ghost related that you investigated that you found completely bizarre. And then after that, we'll close. Before we do, though, after the podcast, I'm going to keep you on the line, and I'm going to get some more information for you.
All right, no problem. Yeah, that will definitely. And people always ask me the same question. It's always the same answer. It's a place called Rochdale in the UK.
Okay.
I was called in to investigate a poltergeist case, and this family were living in a prefabricated bungalow. A prefabricated bungalow is it's just made of metal. Really, it's like a. It's not designed. It was built during the Second World War only to be temporary shelters. But eventually they became sort of just living homes. The family had been in there for 14 years, didn't want to move. And all of a sudden, they had the most profound type of poltergeist phenomena of water formings. Now, I went in there very cynical, to be honest with you. I didn't think, they were telling the truth. I thought somebody was messing about. Maybe they wanted to relocate, because people have tried that. Come up with a UFO paranormal story and tell them that they can't live in this rented home anymore and they get relocated. People have clicked onto that and started doing things like that. That's why we brought in the protocol. But there was actually stuff happening. I witnessed. It was absolutely crazy what I witnessed. It was a typical scenario. The family that lived there, the Gardner family, Mr. Gardner said, "Would you like a cup of tea?" So I went into the kitchen and he placed my cup on the side and he poured a little bit of milk into it first. And then I went away because someone called me and I came, and then I heard him hollering. So I rushed back into the kitchen and it was raining. It was raining in the kitchen, very large drops of rain. And I'll never forget the scene of seeing the water drops that large go into my mug so heavy that the milk was jumping out. That's how large these drops were. I looked, he was sat there with a smirk on his face and grabbed a near side brolly, an umbrella. And I'm thinking, what's he doing keeping an umbrella in the kitchen? But they were all too aware of this phenomenon. It was happening all the time. I just didn't expect it to happen while we were there. And I looked up and it was the ceiling was a shimmer of water. And it was just pouring down in rain everywhere. And now it only lasted for maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops. And then it just suddenly stopped. And as I'm looking at this shimmer, it just went into itself. It just went smaller and smaller and disappeared. And I looked over him and he had a smirk on his face, and I was absolutely gobsmacked to the point where I didn't even take a bloody photograph because I just wasn't ready for it, you know?
Yeah.
And then during this next night investigation, there was one that appeared in the ceiling in the hallway, and it arched itself intelligently around the light fitting, and it was very strange. On this occasion, it wasn't dripping down. It was an arc of water moving across the ceiling. And the only way to explain that would be as if you've got a glass of water and you kind of went down and threw it across your kitchen floor. It kind of spikes out. There was these spikes of water coming out, and then the rest of it would move towards it and a little bit more. And it was very, very creepy looking, to be honest with you. I've never seen anything like it in my life. But what was interesting, it's a bungalow. When we went up in the loft, we had our hand on top of the ceiling in the hall where the water was. It was bone dry. It was dusty, bone dry. There was no water up there. There was only water coming into the house downstairs because it's only a bungalow. They had no water system or water holding device up there, no tanks or anything. And I just thought to myself, where the hell is this coming from? So we took a sample of it, and we also took a tap sample, and we took it to. In the UK, our mains guys are Northwest Water Laboratories, and the scientist guys had a look at it. And what we wanted to prove is that this can't be tap water. It can't be rainwater which is really strange. We had 3 weeks of sun in the UK, which is really profound, and it was very hot. So we hadn't had rain for 3 weeks during the investigation. It was about 86 degrees, which is also very strange from the UK. And in fact, there wasn't water coming in from the tap, because when we looked at the analysis, what they came back with was there was elements in there that you could see, obviously because the water was taken from the ceiling, that there were microscopic elements within the water from the paint, which was on the ceiling, which is fine. But what was the water? It wasn't tap water, because they measured the conductivity of the water. Now, water moves through copper pipes and things like that, and it generates a slight charge, which is understandable. Normal tap water in the UK would generate a charge, a conductivity charge of, say, 191. This was 1,393. This was not tap water. We don't know what the hell it was. It wasn't rainwater, it wasn't tap water. But what was really strange is how quickly it would disappear before the next act happens. It's as if the poltergeist, whatever this thing is doing, is utilizing the energy to create something. But if it wants to create something else, it takes it from there and reuses it somewhere else, because they're very resourceful. It would just simply disappear.
You know, when I hear I think about, I saw this program where this guy created a storm using pure energy.
There is the Don Decker case, which is from the US. Now, at this time, this was 1996, I didn't know anybody else who was having or had witnessed this type of poltergeist action, where there was this much of water just appearing and raining. And I thought, this must be a unique case. And about 4 or 5 years later, I started watching a TV show called Paranormal Witness. And I think it was in season 2 or 3, there was one called The Water Boy or something like that. And I didn't know what it was about. And just purely by chance, I had it on one night and I was watching it. And I went, oh my God, this is exactly the same. And it was the case was known as the Don Decker case. And it was exactly, if not identical, to the case I had experienced here in the UK. Huh. The troubles were that bad, we had the family relocated. The phenomena followed them for 2 weeks and then just stopped and never returned. But it did follow them for 2 weeks. And it was just profound. I mean, he had the normal paranormal things, poltergeist type stuff happening, objects moving and radios playing out when they're not even plugged in with no batteries in and things like that. But the water stuff for me was something special. I've never witnessed it again, only once in my lifetime. At the time, though, I mean, I was also thumped in the back, and that was a first for me. I was reasonably skeptical. I came into the subject as a skeptic, some more science-based.
Right.
Through experience. If you see it, you have to accept it. It's as simple as that. I don't mind skeptics, because
you come from a science background, which I can understand. This, I enter this open-minded because I don't know. And here's the problem with me. I always go looking for whatever it may be. But I don't know I guess if an aggressive entity were to encounter me, I don't know. I think the worst case scenario for me, and I said this before, if I'm in a house and there's something like an entity there, and it would just sing a song, the same miserable song over and over again, I think that would drive me nuts, right? that would be absolute torture for me.
Well, it would be. I mean,
yeah, because what do you do about it exactly?
I had interest when I was younger, but when I left school, I became an electrician, a sparky, as we call it in the UK.
Right.
And I got, being an electrician, you get a couple of shocks now and again. It's just part of the learning process. You get a belt now and again, and it throws you away when you get an electric shock. It's supposed to, because we're DC now, not AC. And that's exactly what I experienced when I was there. When I got thumped in Rochdale, sat on the end of that bed and hearing a rasping breath coming from behind me, sat between two female investigators in the dark at the bottom of the bed. Neither of them wanted to turn around. In fact, they were looking at me. Both of them looked directly at me, and you only get that look on your face when you say, "You look, I'm not." I decided to turn around and find out what the noise was behind me. And at that very point, my chin turned over my shoulder to turn around. I found myself on the dressing table, 4 feet in front of me. Now, a big guy. It took a lot to take me 4 foot away. And I was on it. I don't even remember how I got there, but I remember being in pain. And I felt me back. It was in pain. And I ran out. To say to people, at the time, you'd understand. I ran the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Ran straight out that front door, holding my back. The guys got me back into the living room, looked at me back, and there was a very large mark. It was bruising. And at that point in time, I was not going to do this subject. I had it. That was it for me. I had no idea how I'm going to actually ever deal with that, not knowing if I could get injured. Like, I didn't think it would happen.
I mean, I tell you that eventually, if I see something, I'm running at it. That's the nature of me.
I did.
Well, what happens to me afterward is a whole different subject.
Yeah.
So,
adrenaline kicks in the next day, and you start to think, how the hell did it do that? And you know what? It immersed me even further into the subject. I didn't expect it would do, but it's honest to God, it scared the living daylights out of me, and I never want to have that experience again. It was a horrible. But what I did experience, how I got over there at 4 foot. It wasn't just a punch; it was an electric shock as well.
Yeah, I would imagine I imagine they're manipulating energy to even do that, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it's the only way it could have lifted me 4 feet.
There's another Facebook group I'm on. I started following. They're called the Tampa Bay Paranormal Society, and they had an article on there some time ago, and it was about a skeptic who was investigating, ghost-related incidents, and he was skeptic, and he was condescending, and based on one of his incidences, not only did he quit investigating it, but his belief system is completely shifted. So,
well, it can do that.
Yeah, I mean, at said point, what do you do, right? So,
well, yeah, people need to be able to handle the possibilities of that. That might happen. I've met many people. There was one guy who was 16 years in the subject as a paranormal researcher. And we took him on one particular case with a proved catalyst through the parapsychological unit, and he lost it. He was crying, and we had to get him out of the building. He completely lost it. He really had.
Yeah, I mean, some people can't handle it, right?
Really. Yeah, really surprised, because people say, oh, I want it, and then some people don't handle it very well afterwards.
I think I'm a negotiator, right? If aliens, let's say aliens come in a house, and I know their technology superior, granted they don't render me unconscious, I'll tell them, like, hey, look, you can do what you want, probe whatever you want. What do I get out of it? You got all the technology. I can do some stuff, right?
Can't do much about it.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you just start negotiating. What do I get out of this? I don't even care how big the probe is at this point, so long as I get something out of it.
Just get it over and done with, yeah.
Yeah, and for ghosts too, like can you negotiate one? Because again, that goes back to, if they are there to bother you, what exactly are you going to do about it, right?
Oh, exactly. But it's a clever phenomenon because we realise that the people that are having paralysis through alien abductions, these beings appear in the bedrooms, light coming through the window, they're paralysed, they can't move. And the shadow people or ghostly encounters in bedrooms and people can't move is one of the same thing. And we're realising that the phenomenon isn't inducing it, it's utilising us. Because we enter into paralysis every night during REM process of sleep. It's a natural process. We don't know we do it. We spend all 8 hours a night trying to get 20 minutes REM. That's all we really need. And the process is that the pressing switches in our brain, which are just basically reactions that causes us to be paralyzed. They're just euthanizing us. They're just pressing our buttons to get that. They don't have to have some special phenomena to do that.
That's a good
can
point.
manipulate the brain to do that.
And there's definitely parallels between the abduction and even the possession. There's definitely a parallel. It's very similar in the way they describe it.
A lot of people don't want to go down that road, though, Adam, as you can well imagine.
But that's comes back to us building a network and breaking down walls, because if you're going to investigate it goes back to no information's bad information.
It's the only way to advance is to do that, isn't
right.
it? Really?
Yeah, you can't compartmentalize information, or else it's just you're not going to get results.
That's it. And I always urge, the ghost hunter guys out there, is get into the UFO stuff. You'll be very, very surprised how much paranormal stuff is in there. And same for the UFO guys, don't be ignorant to the paranormal stuff, because, there is many, many correlations between these two. And that will give us a better, clearer picture as we move forward.
And that leads me back to why in December, and I'm going to do this probably every 3 months, I'm going to do this, or maybe every 6, whatever it takes, like yourself and some of the other people I've spoken to and the other investigators from both MUFON, UFO, Go, all of it. I'm going to have meet and greets where I'll host everybody. Everyone that throws in their ideas, their pitch, or speaks their cases. And those networks might open doorways to answer questions, perhaps something in your area that might answer a question in say, Texas. You know what I mean?
That's brilliant. That's advance. That's progression. That's what this subject needs.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be that you watch an episode on Netflix for you to be like, wow, something that happened to me years ago. There it is again. You should have had that network open a long time ago. Just people need to open that door for you.
They do. And there's a lot of like-minded people that have got pieces of the puzzle. Once we start getting all this together, we'll start making an image.
Yeah, I'm gonna build this network, Steve. I promise you I'm gonna. In the meantime, I'm glad you were on. I enjoyed it. I know I'm gonna have you on again. In fact, I know we're gonna, before the next time, figure out what cases you specifically want to cover, and then we'll do it again for certain real soon.
Yeah, there's plenty of them.
Real quick, Steve, make mention of your books, or in fact, actually, I'll post them up in the YouTube chat. Or,
I've got please quite a number of.
I'll put because you have a slew of information and books, and so I'll put that into the comments or into the description. In the meantime,
no problem. Yeah, if anybody wants to see what the recent stuff I'm working on, which is Project Doorway, just put my name in, Steve Mera, and Project Doorway. You'll find it on YouTube. We've got some YouTube bits up there.
Excellent. Steve, I thank you very much for being on tonight. I really enjoyed our conversation.
No problem, Adam. I enjoyed it as well, mate. Very good. Thanks for having me.
Indeed. Talk to you soon, sir.
Take care.